everyone, and welcome to another episode of Talentela's Dude, Let's Talk. This series is all about marketing and the personas behind every campaign, every brand that you have loved. It's not that easy, and there are so many facets to marketing, and this is our attempt of trying to get pieces of it on this show so that you just have better perspective, better knowledge about the journeys, the strategy, the execution that goes behind everything that you see around you and how a brand is built, how a campaign is run. It's truly fascinating. And to have one perspective and one additional voice to this is a very, very dear friend of mine and a past colleague. She is somebody who I have absolutely loved working with. I've loved fighting with her. I've loved fighting beside her, and she has taken so many of my ideas, tantrums, like taken my side in so many things, and always been so supportive in even in terms of Talentela's journey. She is also, needless to say, a brilliant marketer. She is creative while and strategic while still not losing on the very important executional side of marketing. So let's bring Aashna Iyer to the platform.
Hello.
Hi, Aashna. So nice of you to be here. Very excited
Oh,
to have you here and have this chat.
super excited.
So,
I've
Aashna,
always
you
wanted to do
have
this.
good. Uh, Along with your slam poetry and in general the spouting of ideas that you usually come up with, this is one more thing that you can invest
I,
your mind
yep.
and speech to. Yeah. So, you have had quite a journey, Ashna, from multiple agencies to then hopping over to the client side and then hopping back. That is something that you don't see many people doing. You have always been strategic, but also so detail oriented, which is so very important. So, let's start this entire conversation with the most important part of it as to what has been your journey like in terms of getting to a point where you see brand strategy as a holistic term. Why don't we start there? How did you get to this point?
So, interestingly, when I started working, I remember one interview that I had given where I said, I don't see myself doing social media for 5 years from now. I'm not going to be doing this because I'm meant for bigger things or some such equally dumb thing. Um, but so eventually I actually got into a social media, a very entry level role. And, the point that you made about being strategic, but also execution oriented or detail oriented, that's actually something that comes from my first job and sort of carried forward through there. Because my first boss, despite me going to him every 6 months and saying, please get me out of execution, was very categoric that you cannot grow from here if you do not know the ins and outs of what you're working with.
Yeah.
And that at that stage I thought it was really dumb, right? Because it's social media, and that time it was early stages, right? This was what, 2014, where it was, I was like, yeah, it's Facebook, it's a post, it's Twitter, it's a couple of words, it's not rocket science. And then as you went through it, you realized, oh God, there's so much more. So, with every step that I took, from creating content and posts and working on image copies and working with the designers, I actually grew from there into then actually planning and most importantly, taking the ownership of making the reports to the clients.
Yeah.
Because, otherwise what happens is there's someone else making and sending the reports, someone else doing the work, and then you don't really see the retribution that comes through. So actually starting to front face the client, to actually speaking to them, understanding their problems, connecting with them better. In fact, client relationships was one of my biggest problems. I used to hate talking to clients, and my boss used to insist on me talking to clients. In fact, throw me in the deep end randomly out of nowhere, and so on and so forth. So, that early stage growth was actually very, very important. And honestly, I would not be able to strategize, regardless of medium. I would not be able to strategize if I hadn't gone through that. Because then, as I grew from there, even as you grow in the industry, you realize that strategy is something that comes once you understand the rules. And understanding those rules is what happens when you start making those small posts and tracking the channels, and making the reports and reading the data and bringing the insights and all of that stuff. And that's actually what propelled me a large amount. uh, After which, when I as I kept growing, every step you learn something. The industry that we're in is so dynamic, it's so fast paced. You're learning every step of the way. In fact, right now, because I'm in a purely strat role, I'm actually a little bit worried because I would end up losing touch with the medium,
Yeah.
and that's petrifying, right? So you have to keep doing that. And when I moved to client side, that was one of the things that kind of upset me, because I'd suddenly moved from knowing so many things and so many mediums and so many different things to one space, one medium, one platform, one sector, one domain. And it was interesting, because it gave me something that typically you would not get in agency side, which is the understanding of brand side KPIs.
Yeah.
The fact that your brand manager or your client, and in agency side you have that thing about clients don't get it, uh, completely demystified the myth, right? Because I'm suddenly client and I'm like, no, you don't get it. You don't. the, the stress of sitting there and going, I love this idea, but I hate that it has no ROI, and I hate that my boss is going to sit on my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just kind of reality check, it's instant. It's just not possible if you don't do it. But despite all of the learning and the fact that I'd made this dream jump in like some insane amount of time from agency to client side, I actually realized that, and that's why the jump back is that I'm not cut out for client side, because I really, really love the mad jumping from one industry to another, to another, to another, that I do in one day as an agency employee or agency person, which I can't do client side.
Yeah.
So that's the jump. And now, because of all of that and all of the many times where I said, please, I can't do post copies anymore, please don't make me do this, I've actually realized that all of that is actually feeding into everything that I'm doing now. I think my teams kind of hate me because I'm sitting there going, this copy doesn't really make sense, it doesn't say the right things. But yeah, I mean, it just feeds into a stronger product. Okay, it's all for the greater good. So yes, that's the journey, I suppose. It's still ongoing, so let's see.
So you mentioned it. You mentioned the mediums that you run across, and this is something that I always think. And um, people. So there is a very traditional argument, right? That you think about the idea and then the mediums, or you think about the mediums first and you start becoming pigeonholed, which is what happened to me also when I was on the client side. You start becoming pigeonholed in how you think in terms of brand as well as the mediums that you can tap into. um, when you think of strategy versus execution mediums, what sort of a journey would that be, um, right from like how you create a story to then how do you ideate, and what mediums do you tap into? What is the journey that you take?
So I think, the argument of whether it's an idea first or a medium first or anything is pretty much a moot point. It doesn't make sense, because honestly, the idea, the medium, these are all execution pieces, right? While I'm not discounting the value of the execution pieces, what I'm saying is, when you think about something, even if it's a single tweet, or if it's a single message or whatever it may be, right? You're not thinking of how is it going to look on social media or on an ad billboard or whatever, right? What you should be thinking of is, who am I? Brand, industry, influencer, whatever. And who is it that I'm speaking to? And between those two, what is it that I'm trying to say, and how am I going to make that synergy happen, right? Because otherwise, it's as good as me standing out in my balcony and yelling. So I'm very firmly of the opinion that the medium, the idea, the execution, the music video, the influencers you choose, all of those things are secondary. What actually comes first is understanding your customer, figuring out your space, and then saying, okay, you know what, this is something that I, as this brand or this individual, can own, and this is what I want to say. Then you figure out whether you want to make it into a 60-second Instagram
Yeah.
reel, or you want to make it a 280 character tweet or whatever, right? So that's my approach. The story and all of that is very, very important, and comes from all of these root things, right? Research, understanding yourself, understanding the message, understanding the customer. Very few people seem to get this.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, this seems basic, and this seems like somebody who would hear this and say, like, yes, isn't this what everybody does? And no, I've realized that there are people who skip this entire process. This doesn't come by default.
Correct. it's
And
it's it's surprising, right? Because I've actually met people who are award winning marketers. Literally, they've got multiple awards to their name, but they routinely miss out on small details like this. And it's so funny because, I mean, you and I have done this, where we've done that whole Pictionary with Kotler kind of situation, when we've literally gone through the basics time after time. It's been hammered into our heads, and we thought we'd never forget it. But I end up sort of missing it and taking a beat and going, oh shit, I have to go back to this,
yeah,
right? And so many people have now just made it a habit to forget it, and you have to keep coming back. You
yeah.
have to. It's rock. It's just basic. It's like breathing. How do you skip that, right?
So, in your journey, what have been some of your favorite campaigns or brands that you have worked on? Basically, I'm trying to figure out if there's any tips or tricks or inspiration that people listening can take from this, because it's super easy to say, oh, the strategy has to be thought through, but I again want to hammer through in terms of, if you get the strategy right, then execution is going to be great.
Yeah, it's true. So interestingly, strategy, and one of my creative colleagues in the team that I'm in right now actually says this, that strategy is one of the most abused terms in the dictionary, right? Because everything cannot just come to a strategist, right? There are different sectors and different areas and different things that you have to think about. Honestly, and I have two options, like two answers to this, right? When you come to clients that I've looked at, I have looked at very FMCG, seemingly easy to handle clients, something very basic, commodities almost, right? I've also handled individuals who you would think are extremely easy to market because they'll do half the work themselves. And then I've also looked at very high intensity, deep tech clients, wherein I, as a lit graduate with a master's degree in media, I was like, this is not happening. I cannot do this. But each of those sectors has actually given me a lot of learning. The first one being that FMCG and these like consumer things, which you might think are so simple to market, hardest, extremely difficult, insane. You think that Maggie is easy to sell. Maggie is not easy to sell, because you know what? Right next to Maggie, there's a top ramen. There's something else. There's Korean ramyeon. There's a billion other things. And Maggie is literally cannibalizing itself with its oat
Yeah.
noodles and chicken noodles and tomato noodles and all of that. Navigating that is a minefield, and it is not as easy as it looks. I mean, we used to do this for a socks brand, wherein we thought, oh, it's socks, they're cute, they're comfy, how hard is it to sell socks? Yeah, it's really, really hard to sell socks. Try creating a topical campaign for socks around Diwali or Friendship Day or Raksha Bandhan year after year after year, and bringing the socks thing in, and all of it's not easy. On the other hand, tech, which I thought was going to be super complicated, is actually really simple once you get one thing right, which is again tip number two: insane research. You have to research, you
Everything.
have to know who it is, you have to know the product, you have to try out the product. You have to, or if it's a service or whatever, go to the website, read up about it, read Wikipedia articles, it's fine. But read, understand, ask stupid questions to the client, it's fine. But once you get that understanding, you realize that tech, because of the perceived complications of the space, is actually such an under tapped, under
Yes.
targeted sector that you can literally go out and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's an open playing field, which means that suddenly, and we did this when Black Panther launched, released rather. I remember someone in the company said, "Hey, the client said Black Panther was actually a great representation of what they do. They are a product dev company." I am not a Marvel fan. I actually went and watched Black Panther, noted down points during the interval,
Wow.
woke up at 6 the next day, wrote an article, sent it to the client, and it was published by 6 in the evening. And that's how cool it can be. Black Panther, tech dev company, completely not related, but hey, there you go. This kind of fun you can only have when you understand everything, and then you have that kind of open space where you're like, hey, go crazy, do what you want. And that's where all the cool campaigns you would have seen. You would remember things like GE, you would remember, Microsoft, you would remember Apple, because none of the memorable Apple campaigns, for example, very deep tech client, or the Microsoft campaigns, very deep tech products, but none of these things are like extremely technical.
Yeah.
The magic is understanding and making it human. So research, very very important, right? And the third thing which I mentioned earlier, which is understand your customer, right? Who are you selling to? How do they function? Where do they connect with you, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like two parallel lines, and you have to figure out how it's going to intersect at some point in time, right? Okay, so that's mathematically incorrect, but whatever. I'm a strategist, not a mathematician. But the point is
We
that
get it. We get it. It's okay. These are not real lines.
they're just
They're
their
going to exist
lines.
at some point.
Their lines. They'll meet up somewhere. So the point is, someone will forget to draw it straight. I don't know. But the point is that you have to make sure that these two lines somehow meet up, right? So there's a brand which is doing a certain thing. It's a product, a service, whatever you might be offering. And there's a customer who at some stage will need it. Now, understanding at what stage the customer will sort of come close enough. It's never going to come directly in, like naturally come directly towards together, right? But where does the customer come close enough that you can
Yeah.
actually sort of lasso the person in? It's literally, I mean, visually, it's like that. You need to be enough magnetic enough, or your content or your approach needs to be magnetic enough that the customer who's kind of close to where you are right now would be able to pick it up, right? For that, understanding how they're wired, as simple as Nestle doing that whole thing about moms freaking out when Maggie that entire sort of thing had happened, and moms freaking out that, oh my god, have I been giving my kids something so unhealthy for so many years. That kind of coming back, and Nestle picking it up and saying, okay, that's the space we're going to play, right? And that kind of sort of understanding and thought process comes only when you understand the person who's actually putting money on the counter,
Yeah.
right? And very important, can't forget it.
So there are two things that I would really like to highlight in the 3 points that you said. One is research, and I just don't hear it enough. Like when I'm talking to um, when I'm talking to people who want to get into marketing or who have years of experience, and I ask them the process that they follow, it irks me if the first step is not research. I go back and I ask them, I'm like, how do you get to the point where you understand the brand? Like, what is it that you do exactly? Like, how
Right.
how are you not mentioning research? It's so important. It has to be a reflex action. And the second thing, I think, especially with when it comes to your third point, apart from asking apart from like understanding your consumer base, I think that one thing that's so necessary is consistency in terms of the message. When you finally center in on the message that you want to like drive through and that will connect, there has to be consistency in like how you are putting it across and what you are saying. And if you're saying too much, it may not be the best strategy because the clutter just keeps increasing. And I don't know, I've never seen that really work in that
Yeah.
sense after that.
Just one
um
caveat to that, but because see, consistency is often misread as sameness, and
oh
that is a very wrong way to perceive it, right?
yeah,
Because a message of, say, strength or dependability can actually translate differently for different audiences.
For sure.
So it's not about consistency in terms of say the same words, it's about consistency in terms of convey the same thought. You
Yes.
might use vastly different words, but convey the
Only
same
bad
thought.
pun. It's not, that's not the essence
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
So we have worked together like individually, but also as a team, we have worked together. Um, in general, like Talentella, the USP of Talentella is that we think that expertise is going to be where the future of marketing is at. In that tonality, what has been your experience working with experts versus generalists? And I firmly believe that expertise is the way of the future in the next 5 years for marketing. And I'd love to know your thoughts about that, Ashna.
So I have slightly divergent views, and I've actually had these thoughts for a very long time. Um, a lot of people say experts versus generalists as if it's two very different things, right? A generalist, in my opinion, is not someone who has an absence of expertise. Okay. What I would say is an expert is somebody who is the absolute last word in a certain vertical or a certain thing. Very,
Right,
very important, right? So a designer who understands design, a writer who understands writing or content in general, right? A strategist who understands strategizing. But there are also so many people in in a marketing system, like you said, right? Every campaign has so many people going into the effort. There are a lot of people who are not necessarily domain experts, right? So you will have your client facing customer
right,
teams, right? The servicing teams. And I've worked with some great people from Talentela as well, who are my client facing people. I know that I want to talk to them about something. They understand what I'm saying when I'm talking design. They understand what I'm saying when I'm talking content. They understand what I'm saying when I'm talking brand. These guys may be marketing specialists in that
right.
sense, but they're not domain specialists, right? And they have played a very important part. My business growth teams, they understand a gamut of things. They may not be experts, but they understand that gamut of things, which makes them irreplaceable in that sort of engine that I've built, right? Which is why I think, yes, of course, any marketing effort requires specialized experts on board as well. You can't do a jack of all kind of mix of
Yeah,
people. However, you cannot discount the value that someone who understands multiple things would bring to the table, because they effectively are the glue that holds all of these different people together, right?
right.
Because I have seen so many, and we have seen so many arguments between a designer who truly believes that the design is on point and a content person who truly believes that their content is on point, and both of them not gelling because there's too much copy for one image. And I'm just giving a very simple and basic example, but this happens.
Yeah,
And
it happens. So way
it's
more.
up to what we used to do, in fact, which is sitting there and going, okay guys, maybe there's a wire media here. Yeah, yeah, middle ground. And that's what we used to do. That's what we used to do between our agency and the client, and so many different ways. I'm not saying that we're not experts at certain things. I'm saying that we're also good at bringing that sort of holistic awareness and understanding. And I think both are equally, required, because otherwise this whole like expert versus like specialist versus generalist debate, it's going to start hurting you, because what are you going to do with one great copy person, one great writer, artist, one great media person, one great SEO person, if there's nobody sort of connecting all the dots together,
No, for
right? There's
sure.
still disparate dots.
You need that glue to hold it together. For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That is my honest to god belief. I don't think we can do without either.
I think that's a fair point, especially when it comes to maybe the person who's overseeing it. That person needs to be, well, more than a generalist. I think that person has to be a manager and somebody who just has a lot of
Right.
like different focuses. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Which is why the term generalist, or the term yeah, the term generalist is actually taken to be a lack of expertise, which I think is absolutely inaccurate. because
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
not true.
someone who has a
No, no,
lack of
of course.
expertise. It's someone
No.
who has a lot of general information and
Right.
awareness, right? And of course, the additional soft skills of being a great manager and understanding how to pull teams together and all of that stuff. But apart from that, I think that's important. Yeah,
I agree over there. But I do think so. I have seen the benefits of having expertise in terms of execution. So I think that is where the difference we'll see. I think the next 4 5 years are going to be very interesting in
definitely.
this debate, because with everything, with the future of marketing changing so rapidly, there's a huge content shift, there's a huge
Hmm.
technology shift. I feel like there's anyway going to be so much change that this is going to be a factor in that as well. What do you
Hmm.
think the next 4 5 years are going to bring to marketing? Because the scenario is shifting so rapidly.
Yeah, I think honestly, and this is something when AI started really coming up, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" I think I remember this conversation happened in the office as well at one point in time that all of your jobs are going to be taken over by AI. There is no point in any of you doing any of this. I remember these graphic things, but yeah. So I mean, having heard all of that and been super petrified by all of that, I think one of the things that truly stands out, and it's now over the last year and a half has become a demand almost on the marketing industry especially, is the aspect of human, right? The whole point of a machine not being capable of being superior to a human being is because of that aspect of empathy, of human feelings, of human connect, that customer connect, empathizing with whoever you're selling to, whoever you're selling for, all of that stuff, right?
Of
That comes
ideation,
into the picture. Yeah,
creativity.
exactly, right? Creative ideation. There are so many things that you can't leave up to a machine.
Right.
But for that, a very crucial thing is that you need to start respecting the human being, right?
Hmm.
And all the talent that is in there, and all of the capabilities that a human being has, but also all of the needs that a human being has in terms of rest time, downtime, research time, um, processing time, all of these things, right? Otherwise, there's a very heavy demand as of right now in terms of the old way of functioning, which is very timesheet led.
Hmm.
How many hours did you spend? How many words did you write? How many copies did you make? How many posts did you create? Right? All of this, how many, how much, that kind of aspect has actually started detracting from the potential impact of marketing,
Quality. Yeah.
right? Which is why experts in today's day and age are literally treated like a factory system. You go to a design team and you say 10 creative का brief आया है,
Hmm.
50 creative का brief आया है, 8 महीने के डाउनलोडेबल कंटेंट एसेट्स का ब्रीफ आया है, so on and so forth. I don't know, but they cannot be entirely holistic talent in that sense, because talent is a very heavy term, but that talent needs to be honed, it needs to rest, it needs to be have its own space and time to grow. And if that's not happening, the experts that you bring on are basically tantamount to only the last time that they had time to process,
Yeah.
you know. So in my opinion, in the future, what we're looking at is we're looking at a complete change from this idea of vendors, demanding clients, partners, cynics, all of these people who are just coming there and saying, acha, machines will take over everything. You are being paid for a service, so you deliver the service. You are not being paid to think, or you are being paid to think, which is both two sides of a very different coin. So all of these things are currently in a big mess, and honestly, it's really cool because it's up to us, people like you, people like me, people who we worked with in the past, our colleagues, our juniors, to actually make this shift happen. Because we've understood and we've actually pushed back to clients as well, saying, listen, it may look like a 1:1 square image, but it's not really
Yeah.
just a square image, right? Give us time, let us make it, let us think about it. All of this comes into the picture, and I'm hoping that in the next 4 or 5 years, folks like us are actually going to grow into a space of leadership, of management, and actually start sort of changing that and bringing that in, thereby giving your specialists the time to hone their skills, and giving your generalists the time to study more and be more evolved in that sense, so they can actually stop being representatives of lack of skill, which is
Yeah.
what's happening right now, right? That whole typical thing of like, and I've been client servicing, right? That whole thing of like, अरे CS is not supposed to be creative, CS को सिर्फ client ka mail do, client ka mail bhejo, that kind of thing. I hate it. Don't. It is ridiculous. It is wrong. And good God, if I see CS people who are literally just being postmen, it irritates me. It's not the way it's supposed to be. These people are people who are supposed to just understand everything, yeah. You can't be
They're your
sitting
brand
there.
holders.
Yeah, they're the people who are interacting the most with the client. What are you telling them to do? Be a postman. That makes no sense, right? So hopefully this whole shift happens, and I'm really looking forward to it because there's so much brilliance that is there, especially in India, from a marketing perspective, right? Our market in terms of readiness for marketing has actually grown, but in
Yeah.
terms of delivery, we're kind of lacking behind because that's the shift, right? You need to have creative people sitting there going, ooh, brain fart, this is a great idea, right? And going out and doing that. Right now, we're like, budget kitna hai, video banayenge,
Time
Instagram pe
kitna
reel ka
hai?
60 second, correct, correct. Turnaround time kitna hai, client approval kaise dega. All of these things that come into it, and it baffles me. It is sad,
Yeah.
but yeah, hoping for utopia. I don't
On that note of looking for utopia, what would you say are a few mantras that content creators, that strategists or to be strategists should follow to just maybe not shift focus and align themselves in their career so that they are not just like strategy but they actually understand how a great job is to be done.
know. Okay, so one thing is definitely start asking questions, right? Or start and keep asking questions. Because one of the reasons why I I don't know, managed to reach her, I still think it's a minor miracle, but one of the ways that I managed to reach her was I kept figuring out why, right? I kept figuring out, can we look at this differently? Is there something that we've missed? Is there something that can be done? Is there some way of making this fun for me? Right? It's not about at that stage, it's not about the client, it's not about the agency, it's not about your boss, it's not about any of that. Can I make this fun for me? And once it starts being fun for me, it suddenly just becomes fun, and it becomes easier, and you start asking the right questions because you're being driven by this innate need within yourself to actually push a little bit more and do a little bit more, which is my personal thing. And again, this is something that one of my earlier bosses used to say, that if you're getting bored about something, then imagine how bored your audience is getting, because your boredom is going to translate. And yeah, I keep needing to remind myself of this once in a while, just being like, no, no, can't be bored, must be interested. So yeah, but that's definitely something that is important. A second thing, and that's also a factor of the space that we're in, marketing, media, advertising, whatever you want to call it, it's extremely demanding. It's a very high frequency, high speed, extremely demanding space. It is very, very crowded. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people here,
All that one.
right? A lot of people. You will hear names and you will see campaigns being featured again and again on lists, and you'll see them in brand equity, and you'll see them at Cannes, and you'll see them at all of these award shows, right? Yes, they are good campaigns. Okay, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of money that goes into it. There's a lot of just dumb luck that goes into it, honestly, a lot of times as well, right? Because we've all run campaigns that could have been an award winning campaign, but
Yeah.
just something didn't happen, you know? Don't let that get you down. Secondly, there will always be people who will be gunning for that campaign, for that award, for that top spot, for that notice, right? There are 200 people in large agencies today, or there are 500 people in large companies today, right?
Yeah.
Or mid sized companies today, sorry. But the point is that if you're going to be like freaking out about getting to that top spot, there are also other people. Some people may not be very nice about it. They will try to get you down. You should not do that ever. But there will be people who will keep trying to reiterate how not the greatest you are, right? Now, I'm not saying true or false. I'm saying, dude, you are doing the best that you can, which I hope you are. Just do the best that you can, and don't let other people tell you that, Acha, you're an idiot, or you're not good enough, or you're not intelligent enough. or whatever, right? Just if you think you're right, ठीक है ना, it's okay, it's fine. Let me let me just remind you that there are in a class of about 60 people, right, that graduate from one class of PMM every year. There are similar like 100 colleges, similar 60 times 100 people who are exiting the college space and entering the marketing space. Out of those 60 people, those are only entry level. They grow, and there are more people who come in. There are also people who come in from different backgrounds and keep coming into the picture, right? Out of all of these hundreds and thousands of people, you are seeing lists of 30 under 30, 40 under 40. Dude, 40 people every year? Are you kidding me? That's not even a fraction of the amount of great talent that's in this space, right? So don't let those things get you down. Don't let people tell you that you're supposed to be on these lists and things like that. It's literally dumb luck. I have been on a list. It is dumb luck. I have no idea what I did to get there. I don't know how I managed to do it. I don't even remember putting the application in because I was so jammed with work. It was just one of those things that I just did as one of the tasks to be ticked off. It's literally happenstance. It just happens, right? So don't let all of these external things get you down. It's really as simple as that. Just do a good job, have a really good time while you're making these campaigns or working or writing content or making a visual or whatever, right? As long as you're kicked with it and you're happy. I used to tell my juniors this all the time. Is this something that if when it goes live, will you take it to your mom and be like, Mom, look what I did,
Yeah.
right? Or Dad, look what I did, or show it off to your friends. If that's the thing that you've created, then it's fine. Then you're good. Then it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the rant over.
Ashna, I love how much heart you put into everything that you do. It's so nice to hear. And like, I don't know, I feel like people who hear this will be inspired to look at it not just as a job, but want to do a little bit more. And
Heck, I hope so.
I think like that's when you truly find what you're passionate about, when you try and go that extra step, you know.
Yeah,
Awesome.
at least it's
Ashna,
worked. So
it's worked. Ashna, it's been amazing talking to you again. Not that we don't talk often in any case, but it's been amazing talking to you on an official platform. Thank
yeah.
you so much for coming over here and being our guest. And yeah, I'm hoping that we'll see you again on this podcast soon.
Hey, if people don't get bored with the many loud and endless rants, I'm totally up for it. This was fun, which it always is.
It always is.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, Ashna.
No problem.
Thank
This
you.
was
Have a great night.
you too.
Bye.